Hi, I'm Dhruti Shah, and this is my podcast, Have You Thought About? I'm a writer who loves to find out about what passions people are pursuing, especially if they manage to blend together skills in unusual ways. In each edition, I'm going to chat with someone I find particularly interesting and who's managed to fit things together in their life or profession that you might not think of as an obvious match. Here, I'm talking to academic and spatial enthusiast, Tina Samie. So Tina, we met when we were both embarking on paths trying to understand the Internet of Things. Now our paths diverged, but this is something you've clearly got significant interest in. So can you share a little bit more about your journey? And you're a spatial enthusiast. What does that mean?
To tell you the truth, I've always been interested in how space has effects on our social lives, how that sparked within me when I was a child. I used to play with my cousin, and we used to play these imaginary games in our heads. We were like playing in my grandma's house, and in that kind of situation. Their house and their home had these sorts of like spatial different situations where we could like role play and have fun basically. And so that stayed with me to actually try out architecture as my main major. But then I kind of exhausted that and thought that's not kind of fulfilling me as a designer to be designing the space. I just want to know more and more about how these like spatial interactions can actually affect social life. So I diverged from that and felt more at ease when I was studying space syntax at UCL again. So that became more analytical for me, and I guess on top of that, technology would also be an added layer to describe the environment that we're in and to actually interact with the virtual and the real world. So that's where I ended up in IoT.
And with IoT, I mean, you're doing a very practical course, Connected Environments at University College London, UCL. So far, what sort of things have you been making? What are you doing? And are you a maker person generally?
I didn't expect it to be this hard, but I mean, at the end, the reward is that you're making an actual product that it could actually be sold. People engage with it. It's got a lot of like aspects to it. You can design, you can think about how the user interface is, how you're presenting it. It's a lot about like business. It's a lot about marketing, a lot about how we navigate through the technological world and how we can actually incorporate that into a very simple device like a cup or an umbrella.
And I understand that you created sensors and it's very sort of interactive in that way.
Yeah, it is. It's actually very much about sensing the environment. So we use sensors to build devices that can collect some information about the environment, our like surrounding world, and to analyze that and then to communicate that through a medium. It could be a virtual reality, it could be a screen, it could be an actuator, all sorts of things.
You also love complex systems theory. Now, what is that in layman's term, and how has that helped you in what you're doing now and what you've done in the past? What is it first?
Well, complex systems, I would say when I heard that name, it immediately clicked for me. It immediately like sparked my attention and got my attention. I was invested into knowing the relationship between things and how different kind of phenomenon could have actual impact on the others. This started back when I was in Iran and I was studying architecture. In the middle of my studies, I was so exhausted and so frustrated with all the design and everything, and everybody was talking about similar things. So I wanted to change that. So I took a course that they invited many people from different backgrounds and walks of life, and they came in and talked about so many things that remotely were related to architecture, you would say. There was this one person that they invited, a lecturer, that he was actually an anthropologist. He talked about this complex systems. And the way he opened it up was so so amusing. He was talking about how ants work their way, and how these simple agents as ants that have simple rules in their life and follow the simple behavior, they can actually come together and have this very complex behavior as a group or as a collective being. I guess that was the very pitch that got me. Yeah, so I kind of followed that up, and that's where I found the interest between my background and space syntax, which was about the relation between humans and the spatial arrangements. So it's basically about some social logic of space. I really was interested in how human networks in general can be regarded as a very complex system, and also how that go into the realm of spatial world. Yeah, I guess I can go on about this for a long time, but yeah.
There's definitely a passion there. Now, I'm just actually going to pick up on something. You have Iranian heritage. Can you share a bit
Mhm.
more about your experiences as a woman in that society, and also how the having come to the UK now, which is where you are, how you've brought that with you? At one point, I remember in the past we were talking about finding some good Persian tea. So tell us more about actually your heritage.
Yeah, well, being a woman is always hard. I mean, in any society, I would guess, comes with a lot of challenges, and you have to be resilient in terms of how you present yourself, how you think. You have to be very careful about what you say, how you behave, and basically what you think. And you are judged based upon that. So, coming from that background would be a challenge for me to see how people react here, even in the UK, how people, go on with their lives in a different way than we used to. But also, like, we're not different people. That's the beauty of it. When you see people, meet people, talk to them, you can see that they are like-minded people, and we are all the same. We just don't know each other's backgrounds, and that's the beauty where the storytelling comes, and people share their stories and cultures meet. So that's why I love London, and that's basically one of the reasons I chose London, because it's a very multicultural city, and all these stories collide, and complex systems again.
And you have actually lived quite extensively overseas. So, bearing that in mind, how have you been able to navigate that movement, that path, having to adapt to new cultures each time, bringing again your own culture in? So, there is that embodiment, as it were. How do you do that?
It's difficult because sometimes you have to acknowledge that your past is something that you carry on with yourself, and your heritage and your culture is as important as any other. So many would forget that, and how important that is in defining yourself, and in presenting yourself in another world. For me, I actually had the experience of living in Athens for a while. Living there is very, very different to living in London, and, of course, in Tehran. Navigating that kind of like change and life, basically, in different situations, it is just a very strange feeling, but also at the same time very rewarding when people come up and tell you, okay, yeah, I get what you're saying, and I understand. I really like that thing about you, that exotic thing, or that kind of like the way you see the world, which is really nice. You have to be able to know, confront people and talk to them, and never be afraid of sharing your stories. I really love to share my stories, and I love to hear stories. So that's how I kind of like lived it, I guess.
Because I think, again, I remember you saying that you weren't drinking loads of coffee before, and then was it Athens, or
Mm,
that you became a real sort of coffee
yeah, yeah,
connoisseur?
that's a funny one. When I was back in Tehran, I was living with my parents, and we had this really nice tradition of our own that every morning, like breakfasts are an important thing in our family, and we take it really seriously. So every morning we wake up, we make the tea, and we make a big table, and my mom brings everything in little things, little containers or pretty things. She loves to design. Having the tea time is more like a social thing for us. So every time I go to my grandparents' house and she says, "Okay, I am making tea. Are you coming? Like I'll be there in 5 minutes." Yeah, I'm sure. And this is kind of like a very connecting drink or social thing for us. And when I went to Athens, I saw that people had the same feeling towards coffee, but in a different way than other places that I've been to. They drink cold espressos. so so most people you would see like in the coffee shops, or they're ordering cold espressos everywhere, and I soon come to understand that that's another way of living life, because people there are staying much more in the cafe. It's not like Italy, they would order a cafe and stand up and just like drink their cafe and just leave. They have to sit down and take their time. And so they order cold coffee to basically to make up time for themselves. When I was there, I had to switch to coffee to be able to actually engage in social relationships among people. So yeah, yeah, that's a nice way to put it, I guess.
And the other thing that's really important to you is being a creative thinker. Now,
Mhm.
you, again, having to move, studying some pretty intense subjects, how do you make
Mhm.
sure that you maintain that creativity without getting bogged down in standards or bogged down in other people's politics or
Yeah,
ins and outs stuff?
I really would like to think of it in the terms of, again, going back to complex systems, different realms, and being engaged with different subjects than you usually are used to, or going into searching for new ways of thinking would affect how you go on about a subject in your own background and your subject. So for me, this kind of jumps from different things and being exposed to different worldviews and hearing people's ideas, it actually clicks something in your head. For me, like creativity is not something very, very genuine and original. It's basically composed of a lot of different ideas from different people, and it's the art of patching these together that makes the creative. So I guess that's how I'd like to think. And so many people would come up to me and say, "Tina, how do you come up with these ideas? I mean, that's a really, really cool idea. We don't have any ideas." And I say, I don't come up with these things. I just observe the world and I just hear, and some things or some words that you say might kind of like click for me with another subject that I'm working on. And I mix them together, and okay, I take a little bit of this, a little bit of that, mix them together and make another thing that did not exist before. So
Wh-
that's how I would like to think about it.
What are you most proud of having made so far? So far.
I think when I was back studying architecture, I mean, architecture is a very, in order to see what you actually have been thinking of making, it may take years and years, and it might never happen, or it might never actualize in the world, be realized in the world. So I loved some of the ideas that I developed over the course that I talked to you about. We were working on the rivers of in Tehran, and the small rivers, and how these small rivers could actually be a connection for like shops, or how these organic features of the city can break the actual grid-like, structured city that we are used to. and how can that actually be a generator for market spaces or whatever businesses that might appear afterwards, which that idea became one of my uh, projects that I really love to go back once in a while. I'm most proud of that, but it's not acknowledged the way I would rather it to be. And I'm happy with that. I'm not I don't want it to be that much like appreciated. I just felt that it was something genuinely good. So
Just as we're sort of coming to the end of this, Tina, I want to know, what are your plans for the future? What would be the ideal thing for Tina to be doing?
that's a really big one. I don't know. I would say I'm always exploring and I'm always open. But the thing is that I have always been true to what I wanted in life, like what my passion was. And I kind of use that as a guide for myself to say, okay, this is the right path that I'm taking, or this is the wrong path that I'm taking. I would sit and think about what I want rather than, okay, what I should be doing for my life. So that never kind of works out for me yet, but I'm hoping that it kind of will show some effects in the future for me. I mean, bring something new actually around the corner. I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But yeah, I'm doing what I'm doing and I'm enjoying every moment as it comes at me. I rather spend my life thinking about like things that I love, doing the things that I love, spending time with my friends and family, of course, and spreading love. I mean, that's what I really like to do.
And that was academic and spatial enthusiast Tina Samie. Do you have an interdisciplinary life? Because I'd love to hear from you, and perhaps we can chat on this podcast that goes with my newsletter, which is also called Have You Thought About, and can be found via www.druthishah.com. Please join me next time for a fascinating conversation with another guest who likes to mix up lots of things in their life. Do listen to past episodes and rate and review the podcast if you've enjoyed it. Thank you to Rian Sharp for the music for this podcast.